Hi everyone and welcome to Isamu Rat Care. So today's video is going to be an introduction to, or reintroduction in some cases, to my rats. Somebody recently asked me for this on my YouTube channel, and I realised that it's probably been well over a year since I last introduced who was resident and not, and actually quite a lot has changed since then. So we're going to meet all my rats, and I'll tell you a little bit about them, just so that you know who you're kind of seeing in all the videos. So we're starting off with my boys, and that's because they're in the top cage, so I'll start at the top and work my way down. So first rat, so this is Halcyon Eclipse. So he is a black buck. He's kind of youngish lad. He's not yet a year old, but he's kind of prime of his life at the moment. He is actually related to our lines as much as he's from Halcyon. Let me see, I think great grandma was Diddy, if anybody remembers Diddy from some of my previous videos. He's basically come because I've had basically no luck personally breeding on from Diddy. Well, yes, we had like Fingers, Diddy's granddaughter, who we'll meet later on, but she's not had a litter, so that's it. The kind of like Diddy stuff is gone. But him and Sol, who's his brother, we should introduce here. So he's Halcyon Solar. These two little boys are both kind of great-grandchildren to Diddy, and they're here as a bit of a partial outcross. So how we work in terms of breeding is sometimes we inbreed to try and kind of find out what we've got and fix in what we've got, and then sometimes we outcross, and that's to bring in new things. So what we were finding these are here to help us with is we've had one or two lactation problems with the Topaz family. So by taking these rats that are kind of technically half Isamu and half Halcyon, then we can hopefully improve that, because the Halcyon bit will come in and add in kind of, they don't have any lactation issues in the rats. In fact, their mum had no problems at all. That will help with that. I will say though, not all of our rats have had any problems, but it's just something we like to do from time to time. And these are kind of lovely boys. So Sol and Eclipse, and they are lovely big cuddly boys. They're my first boys I've had in quite a few years. I used to be, let's not eat my the microphone. Eclipse has peed on the microphone because that's what boys do. But yes, so my first boys I've had in quite a while, and they're lovely. Sol is boss of the cage. He's a little bit short, but very stocky and very muscular, aren't you, mister? Eclipse, if you ever see him in the videos, he's probably fluffed up and rubbing against something. He really likes gill smell, and will kind of mark anything that smells in the slightest way of gill. So every free range, it's quite fun for him. But despite that, you can get as fluffy as I want, and I can just go in there and pick him up. He's like a lovely relaxed lad. So that's my two kind of where I started with my boy group. Now slightly older than this, we have Magpie. Now Magpie is actually a girl, though she lives with in my boy group. She's a spayed girl. She came originally, I think she was part of a rescue litter from a missexing accident, because let's face it, that happens a hell of a lot from pet shop rats. And she went to one of our kind of owners who gets pet rats off us, and she came with a particular cage mate. She was being a little bit, let's say, rough with her cage mate, to the point that's why she was originally spayed. But this owner was kind of giving up on rats because life had got in the way, and a girl from us, a Magpie, needed a new home. And actually, I don't like having groups of less than 3. Sorry, some people are shouting in the cages over there. Yeah, I don't like having groups of less than 3, because they like that little bit of kind of like bouncing off to kind of increase social interaction and such. They like that kind of third rat there. So it just made sense for Magpie to come and live with my group, since she was a little bit rough with other girls, and we found a really good home for the other girl. She's very happy at the moment up in Cumbria. But yes, Magpie came to stay with me, and she has her little boys who are a lot bigger than her, and actually it's done her a world of good. She's much happier, much more relaxed. She's a lovely rat. So varieties wise, Magpie is stubborn, is a black hooded kind of. She's got elements of variegation about her, so that's where the kind of the black breaks up. But I class her as a mismarked hooded. I'm not going to be entering her into any shows because you're a long way off the standard, aren't you, miss? But she's an absolutely lovely rat, and actually she's been along to one show where she was a shoulder rat for the day, and actually people absolutely loved her. The other very special thing about Magpie, I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera, but she has the tiniest head spot in the world. She has like 3 hairs worth of head spots. She's not the kind of like most people orientated rat in the world, which is abnormal from rats come from kind of pet shop lines, but she's a very content rat and we do like each other. She just prefers me not to kind of manhandle her too much. She prefers to be running around and doing stuff. Right, so next are my kind of current, most recent 2 additions to the book group, and I will say one of these is temporary, but this little chap, this is Bobby. So he is from my recent letter from Fu, who you're going to meet later on. So Bobby, or Isamu, bobbing along, I think I decided on. I couldn't decide between wind the bobbin up and bobbing along, but I think I got bobbing along. So Bobby is a topaz. He's a young lad yet. I think probably, I probably should remember this, probably about 9 weeks now. Yeah, I think you're just over 9 weeks. He's a lovely lad. He's going to be joined by a boy from Poplet Rattery, who is a kind of friend's rattery, who has part of the family as well in a lot of respects. But at the moment he's living in the main group, waiting for his friends, with his actual brother, who is this little chap, who is otherwise known as Mr. Brown. I haven't given him a name yet because he will be going to his own human along with another rat from Poplar. We've decided to mix and match some of our litters, so that partly so people get their own like different varieties of rats, and partly because it worked well because I'm getting a little black boy and I do need to breed some black rats at some point. I do miss having them. But yeah, little Mr. Brown will be going to the owner of the father of the litter. Mr. Brown's a lovely little rat. He's an absolute sweetheart. He actually started, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, he started with a very faint head tilt earlier this week, literally on Monday. Today is Thursday, and we've just had our NHS clap. And with medication you can barely see it now. It is rare to get a head tilt in a rat litter, but it does sometimes happen. It's one of those things, you can't account for everything. But he's a lovely little lad. He's going to be very happy in his new home when everything kind of settles down and sorts out. But for now, the boys are very happy living together. When time comes, I'll take the 2 kittens out and introduce them to their new kitten friends, get them all settled, and then split the pairs up after at least a few days, probably more like a week, and then introduce my permanent pair to this group. My little black lab's going to be called Kip, or Finders Keepers, so hopefully I'll get to meet him for the first time soon. Some of my pictures so far. It's quite nice getting rats from another breeder. It's quite special in its own way. Hey, mister. Right, so that's my boy group. So currently 5 rats, and I don't really want it to be much bigger than that, but it is very handy to have some books around to do the business when it counts. But also I love owning books. They've got something about them, and they like me too, don't they, Pips? Right, okay. Let's go and swap these out and get the girls. Right, so next we have 2 older ladies, and these are currently living separate from my main girl group, and that is mostly because Mog has decided that she's going to be the world's skinniest rat, or try to be. So they're basically in that little cage with regular extras to try and bulk her up a little bit. So we have 2 girls here. So the first one is Isamu Good King Moggle Mog the 12th, because it seemed like a very good idea at the time, or Mog. For those of you that watch my breeding series of videos, at least the first 5 weeks or so, that featured Mog's litter. So Mog is still with us. She's my oldest rat at the moment. She's a bit over 2, and she's showing her age a little bit. She's currently got something going on, we're not really sure what, but we're trying a course of antibiotics to see if it shifts it. But she's a very special girl. You'll hear some people talk about online about heart rats, and if you're not familiar with that term, that's basically a rat that you just get sometimes that kind of connects on a whole different level with you, and Mog's that to me. So she's a very, very special girl, so hopefully we'll get to the bottom with what's going on with her and help her kind of put a decent weight on. But I do know that she's getting to the age now where problems creep in that you might not be able to fix. But that's my little Moggy. You're a good girl, aren't you, babes? She's got some meds to take next, so she's not entirely thrilled at the moment. She knows it's coming. And she does not like taking meds, so I tend to have to syringe. Right, so that's little Mog. Let's put me down this with her friend. So my next older girl is Fing, otherwise known as Isamu Butterfingers, or sometimes the lickiest rat in the world. Fing only really knows how to lick. It's her standard response to most things in life. She's a lovely girl. She's also slightly fat at the moment because, I'll be honest, she does not need the extras that Mog's getting, but she's my slimmest old rat that doesn't have like a mammary tumour or something else that I don't want to get grown, so she's on Mog duty, which you don't mind. You're enjoying the extra meals, even if you're a little bit kind of like full. So yes, so she's Isamu Butterfingers. She is an agouti rat. So agouti have this kind of like variation of colour with the nice pale bellies. I do like agouti, and one of my favourite varieties, wild rat colour. I should say, which I didn't mention before, but Mog, who's hiding behind the cushion at the moment, is a black Dumbo. What's quite a good example. Sorry Mog, I'm going to have to disturb you. She's having a bath. She spends half the time having a bath. So while she's a black rat, you'll notice that her bum is very, very brown. Now this is very normal with older black rats. Oh, Fing has found her way onto the floor. This is why I'm only doing a small number of the girls at once. They know the way around a lot better than the boys. But yes, Mog has quite a rusty backside, which means she looks quite brown, but naturally she is a black Dumbo girl, which you can see a lot more in her head. She's still lovely with fantastic eyes. But yeah, Fing is now exploring. So Mog has had a lovely litter for me, which you'll be familiar with, and we'll meet her daughter later on. And her granddaughter. They both live in the cage, which is really quite special in its own right. Fing, sadly, despite the fact she's one of the most beautiful rats in terms of her face, she's got the most amazing eyes. I think I've had a lot of judges comment that she's got some of the best eyes they've ever seen. Despite that, I know she's got the most wonderful temperament. I mean, like I say, she just licks. She's absolutely lovely, sweetheart. Sadly, despite that, she decided she did not want to get pregnant. 4 times I tried, and then decided that that's probably enough because whilst like attempting to get pregnant isn't a big thing, to be cautious I tend to put them into a birthing cage, so then they have to sit and wait through those 3 days when they would have been due. Sometimes she tends to eat a bit more, so she kind of looked possibly pregnant, so I couldn't like just ignore it and stick her back in the main cage and try again later. But yes, so she sadly has not had any babies. She is my Diddy granddaughter in the cage, my last Diddy granddaughter. Which is why it's quite special having those 2 lads. Hopefully they will father me some litters at some point. But yes, so both of those girls were originally meant to be breeding, but they're very much retired rats now and will live out their kind of days comfortable and well fed if Mog ever decides to eat. What are you up to? I don't trust her. She's got this thing right now of just walking off the edge of things. She might have something neurological going on, if I'm honest. Yes, my little babes. So I like to keep an eye on her, make sure she's okay. Right, so that's the old ladies. I shall just pause this, give Mog her meds, find Fing from wherever she is currently on the floor, and then get you some more girls to meet. Right, so we have the start of the girl group here now. What I've got is I've just gone for 2 of them, the rest are on the floor somewhere, so I'll go and hunt for some more later. So these are my other 2 oldies, as I would class them. They're not quite 2 yet, but they're kind of like getting on a bit. So first of all we have Chocobo. You remember her from many kind of crashes and bangs in the rat room, or me having to run off and go and remove somebody from where they shouldn't, because that's basically Chocobo. So her full name is Lovecraft Chocobo, and she's an absolute sweetheart and a complete clown. She keeps me very, very entertained. She's also the rat that you remembered went through, oh, if you've watched the video that is, she went through the mammary lump video, and we had quite a lot of trauma trying to get her to breathe under the anaesthetic, which she did. That story continued. A little while ago she decided to develop another mammary lump, which I left until it was like literally kind of the latest I could realistically do it and still expect to remove it, otherwise I've had to have her put to sleep, so it was quite large. She went in for that and had a spay at the same time. I hadn't intended to spay because spay is quite a big operation when you're a rat that doesn't like anaesthetic. but she decided to start bleeding from her vagina about 2 days before she was booked in for the lumpectomy, so it became an emergency spay at the same time. That went okay. It was still, the poor vet had quite a stressful situation, I think, and spent the poor veterinary nurse was constantly monitoring her through the full thing, and her breathing wasn't good, but she was breathing, which is the main thing. She got through that operation fine, and she's been fine up to now, but sadly she has developed another mammary lump, and I'm not going to put her through surgery again. So because she's spayed, it will grow slower than it would have done otherwise, but it's one that sadly will take little Chocobo when it's time. I will keep an eye on it. When it gets big and it starts to look like it's kind of impeding her mobility or affecting her quality of life, or possibly might ulcerate, then I'll put her to sleep. Depending on how I am about it at the time, I'll try and do a video on it, but it does really depend. If I'm a bit too puzzled about something, I do struggle to do the videos. And she is a special rat. She's about to escape because she's Chocobo and she knows no limits in life. Right, so next we have Berko. Now, he's a very funny looking girl. He is my new to the book. You may remember Berko from the Socialisation series. So he's a lovely lad now. He still doesn't love to be held for any length of time. He's a cinnamon boy as well, so Chocobo Cinnamon Dumbo, Berko, otherwise known as Rivendell the Right Honourable Squeaker, for those of you familiar with UK politics. Berko is a lovely neutered book. He lives very happily with my girls, and it's actually normally quite beneficial to have a rat of the opposite sex in a group if the opportunity arises. I wouldn't go out of my way to kind of cause it to happen, but it's definitely something that can be beneficial to the group dynamics. And Berko does enjoy being part of the girl group. He likes his ladies, where he's really struggling to get on with other books after his move at just the wrong age. Interesting one for you since we were here. For those of you that are interested, Berko has what we call a keratinous cyst. He's also got very sharp nails, so it makes it very hard when he's a bit of a tense rat. So it's just here. And let's see if I can part the skin a little bit. So what it feels like is a hard lump. I can get my fingers around it, and that's the key thing. I can get them behind it because it's on the skin, and you can just see there's a little bit of a scab there. That's just it rupturing, come to the surface. In theory I could squeeze that out and it'll come out and resolve itself. Berko would really not enjoy that, so I'm hoping it comes out of its own accord. Keratinous cysts are very slow growing kind of lumps filled with debris that are in the skin, and they do eventually just go, some of them are very small, some of them get bigger. His is not the biggest I've seen, but quite a large one. But it's not harming him, and it's not going to bother him. It's not like an abscess, it's not active infection, it's just kind of a build-up of kind of debris, a bit like a scab inside the skin. So that's where we are with that one. Right, now, those are those two. I'm now going to hunt me down some more rats. Give us a sec. Okay. You. 3 rats identified and retrieved. So these are kind of my next in age sequence. So first rat here, this is Moomin, otherwise known as Isamu Moominanup. Moomin is Mog's daughter, so she was the rat I called Mini Diddy in the breeding videos. She's a lovely girl, she's had a litter herself. She's very friendly, she's very much got her mum's kind of temperament. She is one of my favourite rats. She's also somewhat alpha of the cage. It's between her and Chocobo at the moment, and they won't take each other on. It tends to be a little bit fluid in kind of girls' cages, but they're both definitely kind of top ranking rats on there. And they have respect for each other, and it works very well actually. They do a good job in the cage. So Moomin is a lovely girl. She's a Topaz Dumbo. A lot of my rats are Topaz at the moment, it seems. Oh, don't fall off there. And yeah, she's great. We had a great time raising her litter last year, and she's just like a lovely, friendly, cheerful rat. You know, I may have a second litter from her, though it's probably going to be a bit tight in terms of age, but she's in fantastic condition, and she's just such a lovely, lovely girl. Definitely one of those rats you're just happy to have bred. Right, so next we have, I'm trying to keep these rats on my knee and not on the floor, Snufkin. So Snufkin is Moomin's half-sister. They share the same dad, and the mums were actually sisters of each other. So Snufkin's another agouti. She's a lovely kind of girl. She's not as kind of confident and effusive as Moomin. Moomin's like larger than life character, like a lot of my rats actually are. Snufkin's more reserved and kind of gentle and quiet, and she very much is very fond of me. She doesn't love loads of extra other people, so we have our kind of moments where we just kind of sit and she just sit on me. She doesn't want too much fuss, but she just likes to know that I'm there. We did try and have babies from Snufkin. We've tried a few times. She seems determined that she doesn't want to have babies. It's a lot of responsibility and a lot of faff. But she's a lovely girl. So she came from Lovecraft, so she's Lovecraft Snufkin as her proper kind of full name. My other Lovecraft rat is running away. So that's Snufkin. Off you go. Good girl. And she's off now. And then next we have Lovecraft Foo, or Lovecraft Fool's Gold is her proper name. So she's a topaz rat. She's a lovely lady. She's mum to my current babies that you see running around, and she did a very good job, didn't you, miss? She's a really nice, kind of strong, solid rat. I love this kind of type. She's kind of got lovely length, lovely head. When I talk about type, it's kind of like that physical confirmation. She's the kind of rat I like breeding. You know, she's a proper kind of solid rat. And she did a great job raising her litter. Lost a bit of condition, but you fed them so well that you didn't have as much food yourself. So Foo is, her dad is Mog's brother. So she's very kind of family, but over at Lovecraft. Mandragora, her mum, you can trace back to some of the Isami rats as well, but like Lovecraft or Isami, they're the same rats really. She's a funny girl. She was very independent as a youngster, and then as what often happens when they have a litter, we form a kind of different bond because we rely on each other a lot more. I'm her main break from... Sorry, one of the kittens is currently dragging a box around on the floor. I'm wondering why it's chasing her. One of Foo's kittens. Your kitten is stupid. Yes, she is. But yes, so Foo is absolutely lovely, and she's also escaping now. She says she's had enough. But we do kind of have a much stronger bond since her babies. Right, now I need to try and catch some more. So I'm going to get some younger rats. In fact, Twizzle is here. Let's go through Twizzle while we wait for Wick to appear herself. I think she's scared because Mischief's causing mischief. Right, so this is Twizzle, otherwise known as Lovecraft Wig Twizzle. She comes from, her mum is Lenny, who's Foo's sister, which is quite nice, and she's a lovely black girl, black top here. I can just see Wick just while I've got the chance. Here, Wicky, come here, trouble. If I didn't grab her then, she'd have been off. Yeah, so Twizzle came to me from Lovecraft Rats. She came at the same time as Wick. Wick is Isamu Giggleswick, so she is Moomin's daughter. So we had the litters at roughly the same time, within like a few days of each other. So they moved in together, and they're a lovely little pair. So Wick here is Buff. So Buff is basically, in any variety of rats, you kind of get either an agouti or a black base. So every rat is a particular colour filter over either a black rat or an agouti rat, like Snufkin was. So topaz rats are basically something called red-eyed dilute, which gives them that kind of ruby eyes, over an agouti rat. Wick is that ruby-eyed dilute on a black rat. So you imagine some little filters gone over Twizzle and given us Buff. So it's a really nice example of the differences. If I can grab us a topaz. Borrowed Moomin again, but you can see the difference in colour tone there. And one of the other key differences is if you look at Moomin, Moomin has a pale belly, whereas if you look at Wick, she has the same colour belly as she does top. She's a self rat, what we call a self rat, whereas Moomin is an agouti based rat, or ticked rats we sometimes call them. And that's quite an interesting genetics thing. I will do something on genetics at some point because it is interesting. But yes, these are my two fairly young girls. They were born late last year. They will hopefully be my next mums because they're both absolutely wonderful, and I'd be really pleased to have babies from them. They may be going to Solar Eclipse. Kind of plans are doomed to change, particularly at the moment, but they'd be good matches for them. So that's the current plan. And buff is not something I strictly breed for, but it's a lovely colour in its own right, and it can occasionally crop up in our lines. Right, so that's those two. I'm just going to try and catch me some babies. Hey, bug. Good girl. Right, I've caught one baby. Haha. Good trouble. Got you. Come on, Cuckoo. Got you. Right, we've managed to get the last three in this group. Right, so these three girls, and here they all are. These are all Foo babies. So Foo had 10 lovely babies, most of which were girls. I'm keeping 2 of these girls, and one of them is going to go to a breeder down south. But because it's going to be a little while with the kind of lockdown and everything before I can get them to her, I decided I'd introduce her with these, where it's more feasible that the rat babies that are going to kind of local homes, we can get them there a bit faster, but we'll work things out. Right, so let's introduce each person. So first of all, this is Isamu Doodlebug, or Bug. So she's a topaz Dumbo, much like Moomin, and she's lovely little kind of mischief maker. She's quite a lot of fun. She's quite kind of like strong-willed as well, as any proper rat is. Right, no, I can see you. So she's my kind of girl keeper. That's a Dumbo. Right, so my next one that's going to be staying here permanently, this is Isamu Mischief. I can't remember, oh, Mischief, I think I ended up for a show name. I always have a show name and a pet name, otherwise known as Mischief or Missy, depending how naughty she's being. She's the baby rat that managed to open the cage door when she was younger. She was the baby rat that was just dragging around a box by a bit of plastic and wondering why it was chasing her. She's kind of a bit of trouble, which is probably why she's staying. I do love her. She's really lovely and a lot of fun, keeping me very entertained. I don't know where she's gone now. All the way up to no good. Should we pop you on the floor? There you go. And she's off again. And then finally, my kind of longer term rat that's staying until we can get her to a new home down at Halcyon. So she's following the kind of boys that went down there. This is Isamu Cuckoo Cloud, I think. Cloud Cuckoo, that's it. Sorry, I'm really bad at remembering things. Or Coo. And she's a lovely little a topaz Dumbo again. I should say Mischief is just a topaz. And she's kind of full of beans, very kind of sweet and gentle and fun. She's very active, so hopefully she will be very happy when she does go to a new home, but for now she's happy living with my bunch until she's older and we can travel again. So go on, off you go. She's got 4 Agouti sisters waiting for her down there. Well, I say sisters, cage mates. So she'll have plenty of kind of playmates to go to. It's just, not just yet, she has to put up with me for a bit longer. Right, so that's all my girls. That's all the rats that I would say I class as residents as such. The other 5 girls that are living in the kind of kitten cage, they're all kind of got their names against them. One of them, I will introduce you to one actually because she's kind of staying, she's going to Lovecraft, so she's staying quite close to home really. She does have the knack of being like the first to the door, so she's quite easy to find. So this is Fish. She's a lovely little lady and probably physically the best in the litter, though actually her brother Bobby's quite nice as well. But yes, so she will be going over to Lovecraft when she's ready. She's got some little friends waiting over there when the lockdown finishes, but is currently living with the rest of her sisters. So she'll be quite happy when that comes, because she'll have an even bigger cage than you've currently got. But yes, I do like little Fish. You're trouble, aren't you? Nearly stayed, but she's not going far, so it's okay. So that's everybody that I've got currently. So hopefully that was useful for you and you'll be able to put some kind of like names to faces. Now I best go because Foo is trying to meet her daughters. However, Foo no longer likes her babies, and if she can get to them, she'll probably huff at them and make them scared. So I better go and stop her before there's a reunion. Hi everyone, a quick update on the rat thing. The reason I've not posted it, actually, I filmed it a week ago today, and a week ago tomorrow I sadly found Mog passed away. Well, she was in a bad way, and I had her put to sleep, but it's one of those that it's always going to be a hard one when you lose a rat that's like that. And I kind of knew it was likely to happen at some point, so I'm glad it happened quickly. And she was very bright and happy right up to the end, even if she didn't particularly want to eat because she was an ass, but she was my ass. So yes, I just thought I'd update that. I will get it posted at some point, but I've just not been able to. Sorting out a bit more now, but we'll get used to it. So over and out for now.